Work session for 25 June. Welcome, and we will go over our agenda for Thursday. We have our roll call by Ms. Adams, our invocation by Pastor Greg Rolls of the Good God is Good Church. Pledge allegiance by Welcome Back Councilman Benning. And then we have our acceptance of agenda. We only have one presentation, awards proclamation for declaring Boys and Girls Club Week. And that will be received by Mr. Jay Hamright, the CEO, as well as that's it for presentations. And we'll go to our city manager for city manager report, sir.
Thank you, Mayor McCaw, members of the council. As you're aware, the legislature suddenly died last week, and that's always a good thing, just as an aside. Nonetheless, that occurred without any major changes to our revenue structure, so that's something that we're always looking at. And of course, the food tax was the main one. There are some sweeps of airport funds and things like that that we would have used for projects, but until we get the airport master plan done, we wouldn't have any anyway, so that doesn't really impact us. So that's a good thing. And then as of this morning, the city clerk informed me that the quotes for our insurance premiums came in and are running $250,000 over last year's. So that obviously has a budget impact. Fortunately, we have a couple of ambulances that are being delivered on Friday, and they're in the budget as carryover items right now. So we have an offset, so we will make those changes to the budget for your final budget, but it doesn't impact anything you're doing with regards to the tentative budget approval today. And then I'm sure I'll have more on Thursday than Mayor McCaw, so that's it for now.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So we'll go to our public hearing, and we'll start off first with the discussion and approval of Resolution 2024-4042, the approval and adoption of Vista 2040. Staff report, Mr. McLaughlin.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Let me just make sure. Okay, good afternoon. So I'm pleased to present to you the product of many meetings and consultations over the last 12 months. By now, hopefully you're familiar with the contents of the plan. This afternoon, I plan to concentrate on the major themes and key points, and on Thursday, provide a more succinct presentation. So the Vista 2040 plan represents the fifth update to the general plan since it was originally adopted back in 1965. Under state law, the city must either re-adopt the existing plan or adopt a new plan, and we're proposing the latter in this case. So the commissions that you've appointed have all endorsed the final draft that will be presented at the third and final hearing on Thursday. On June 11th, the Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing and voted unanimously to adopt the plan pursuant to the findings contained in the memo before you. If you ask me what constitutes a good general plan, I'll say that it's one that gets approved by the voters. And in that regard, the Vista 2040 plan will be on the general election ballot on November 5th. And we hope and expect the plan to be approved without any controversy based on the process it's gone through. It's a well-vetted document. For those of you curious on what the vote was, the last time around, back in 2014, it passed by 58% approval. What's interesting is that 10% of the voters skipped the question altogether. So we're going to do our best to inform the general public of the contents of the general plan. We do understand that it's a big ask to have somebody pick up and read through the entire document, so we're going to do our best to boil it down into a digestible format between now and November 5th. I do want to mention that our work on the general plan started well before the process shown on this slide. In late 2000 and through 2001, staff met with the Planning and Zoning Commission over the course of 5 meetings to do a chapter-by-chapter review of the current general plan, Vista 2030. And then we presented the final evaluation and appraisal report to the council at a work session in February 2022. That initial work helped us to frame the direction and the proposed plan before you. As you know, the update involved a new interactive approach, working through our commissions who were each assigned one or more of the elements to review and comment on. I think breaking the plan down into chunks based on their respective interest areas was a wise way to engage our citizen volunteers. That proved helpful in setting the ultimate direction. I want to thank the staff liaisons and the council liaisons in shepherding the process to make it a more meaningful plan. So it's a less than perfect science trying to predict what lies ahead, especially when the economy is so heavily influenced by federal defense spending, which can go up or down as you have well experienced. No one has a map of the future, so it's all somewhat of an educated guess. I think even Chuck would admit that his crystal ball gets a little fuzzy when looking out past the next week. So this plan is based on the best available data and analysis found in existing adopted plans and studies, as well as other secondary sources. I previously covered the demographic section with you, but the point I want to reiterate is a slowing of our projected population growth from the current 1% annual change to a 0.25% annual growth. So by 2040, I thought there was a slide in here that charted that out, but we're expected to reach 48,000 people, which represents a 2,720 person increase over the 2020 census figure. The county as a whole is projected to grow at a slightly slower rate, topping 130,000 people by the end of the planning period. While it's a comfortable position not to be overwhelmed by growth, as was pointed out during the budget presentation, our state shared revenue is affected given our relative population growth to the major metros in the state. So right now we're the 27th largest city, one spot behind Bullhead City and one spot ahead of Prescott. So it also means we're going to have to invest in marketing to attract the attention of the national companies that are looking to invest in faster growing cities throughout the state. Oh, it just got moved down.
There's a slide.
So there are many factors that influence our development patterns of relative location in the state, transportation access, infrastructure build out, economic conditions, land use and development regulations, market trends, and of course social dynamics all play a role. Sierra Vista City's limits have grown considerably since its founding back in 1956, when our boundaries covered 2 square miles. Today, the city limits cover 152 square miles, which makes us the 9th largest city in terms of land area in the state. The largest chunk is, of course, Fort Huachuca, which was annexed in 1971. It encompasses approximately 115 acres, or 3/4 of the city. In terms of future city expansion, we're guided by your annexation policy. The policy establishes priorities and guidelines for conducting annexations. Over the past 10 years, the city has completed 6 annexations, bringing in 100 acres into the city limits. And of course, priority focus has been placed on our enclave areas. The jagged city limit lines make service delivery inefficient when you have to look at a map to know whether you're in the city or the county, which is the case in Fry Town site. You may recall in 2015, we completed the annexation of the Sulgar neighborhood to eliminate that confusion. And as I will get to in a minute, the city has more than enough territory within its current boundary to accommodate our growth projections without expanding its boundary. However, most of this land is currently unplatted and doesn't have infrastructure in place, so it's going to require some effort on that side to make it readily developable.
Hey, Mac, can you go back one slide? It's blown up real big in here, so we just saw the keys.
Oh, the ledger.
Okay,
The
so
ledger.
the pink areas are the enclaves.
Okay.
Again, those are completely surrounded by the city limits. The undeveloped areas just outside have been identified as potential targets for annexation
Right.
based on the 2008 policy. The purple areas are previously undeveloped or previously developed commercial areas. And then previously developed residential areas are shown in yellow.
Thank you, sir.
You may recall the bit of trivia that the state and federal land account for 90% of the territory within the city limits. If you remove this property, there are 10,000 acres in private hands or municipal use. Municipal and county facilities comprise just under 2,000 acres within the city limits, and I think the city's done a good job citing its parks and securing land along its washes for stormwater conveyance. The challenge in the future will be addressing the public facility needs in the southeast quadrant of the city over the next 15 to 20 years, where we're expecting to see most of the future growth. This slide shows the location. Sorry about the text. That happened when it was converted to PDF because the PowerPoint presentation wasn't quite working, but it shows the existing commercial and industrial lands within the city in red that make up the city's tax base. Together, they comprise 900 acres. The city was largely developed, as you know, during the automobile age, following strict commercial development patterns along the major roadways with no discernible downtown. The epicenter, of course, is the Four Corners area where the highest traffic volumes are located. Over the past 7 years, we've been averaging just over 20,000 square feet of non-residential development. If this trend continues, we can expect 350,000 square feet of new commercial and industrial development by the end of the planning period within our commercial and industrial zoning districts. All right, good, the text is showing here. Existing residential development occupies 3,600 acres of land within the city, which represents just over 1/3 of the land held in private ownership. According to the census figures, there are just over 20,000 homes within the community. About 3/4 of the housing stock is comprised of single-family units, followed by multifamily apartments, which account for another 1/5 of the housing stock. About 5% are manufactured homes, which are located, of course, within our manufactured home subdivisions, Cloud9, Solgar, and Fry Town Site, and within park settings. On the land in private hands, just over 3,000 acres is vacant. Almost 2/3 of the land is within the tribute-specific plan area, located east of the highway, north of Buffalo Soldier Trail, and that's planned for a mix of housing types and community shopping areas. There are also several, as you can see, scattered sites throughout the community, some within existing platted subdivisions that are readily available for development. We anticipate long-term development will largely occur within our master planned areas of the city. This provides the city with some predictability on how the growth pattern will evolve in the decades to come. We anticipate the predominant housing type to remain single-family detached on small to medium lot sizes, which is what the community prefers according to the surveys. The R.L. Workman projects that are currently under construction will likely capture a significant amount of the housing demand through the planning period. These two subdivisions contain 434 lots. At 2.4 persons per household, these neighborhoods could potentially accommodate around 1,000 people. So that's about 40% of our projected growth between now and 2040. This map portrays the future land use pattern that serves as a legal basis for the city's zoning map. We're proposing amendments to roughly 85 sites to resolve inconsistencies between the city's future land use map and the zoning atlas. We also have a web app posted to our website on the GIS homepage where you can scroll back and forth and see where those changes are to occur. In no case are we lowering the allowable densities or intensities. So in most cases, we're up-planning the properties, again, to be consistent with the city's zoning atlas. In our coordination with the State Land Department, we also removed some open space designations along the washes based on a change in state law that restricts the application of open space uses on state land property or private property without the owner's consent. Of course, our development regulations will restrict development and provide setbacks along our drainage ways to accommodate, stormwater demands from future projects. The goals and strategies of the land use element are structured to support safe, walkable neighborhoods, healthy community commercial districts, a sense of place and emphasis on good urban design, quality parks and open space, a mix of land uses and housing types, and an emphasis on taking advantage of infrastructure where it's already in place through promoting compact infill development opportunities. And of course, this will require coordination and cooperation between the public and private sectors and fostering an environment supportive of private investment. I mentioned this before, I'll say it again, community redevelopment is one of the hardest things that local governments can take on. There are infrastructure challenges, there are market challenges, and it's not uncommon to be confronted by community opposition when trying to make changes. Most of our work over the last 10 years has been focused on fixing the basics, getting sites off of septic and onto sewer, fixing drainage problems, filling in sidewalk gaps, adding street lights, putting in ADA ramps, and just to improve accessibility in those neighborhoods. We've ramped up code enforcement to deal with the problem properties, dragging down neighborhoods. We're making sure that rental housing is safe and decent, and we're now offering grants and other incentives to entice private development to our redevelopment areas. The headwinds that we face, of course, continue to be apathetic property owners, the presence of deteriorated buildings and site improvements that are unappealing, odd-shaped parcels, non-conforming parking and access, and banks scaling back on commercial loans. The plan calls for us to stay on top of vacancy rates, and we do that through the business inventory that we review and update on a semi-annual basis, and that information, again, is available on the city's website, where we can track vacancy rates on a sub-area basis to determine the health of our commercial areas. Continuing to shore up and upgrade our public infrastructure and facilities to improve quality of life, encouraging special events to bring people into our West End, and parks will continue to be a focus, and supporting placemaking initiatives that improve the image and vitality of the redevelopment areas. Moving on to housing and neighborhoods, Sierra Vista has a range of housing options for all income strata. As you are aware, we're one of the most affordable metros in the nation, which is pretty attractive for our economic development folks. Our focus is on making sure, again, the housing is safe and decent, and neighborhoods stay livable through enforcing our minimum property maintenance codes. The goals and strategies here are aimed at supporting neighborhood improvement initiatives, maintaining compatibility, providing for suitable land use transitions using buffering, investing in public facilities and infrastructure, again, to bring up to current standards, fostering housing choice by offering a broad spectrum of zoning district options, which is interesting when you look at the neighborhoods being developed. About a third of our multifamily zoning district is being developed with small lot single family based on the smaller setbacks, which you may recall have been amended to accommodate smaller setbacks in other zoning districts. We're seeing a market trend of people wanting lower maintenance properties without the bother of doing yard work. So, all right, scrolling down to economic vitality, there's been a lot of great work done by our economic development team in recent years to build upon our assets and strengths, particularly the airport. Key focus here is building upon the last iteration of the Plan for Prosperity, developed in 2018, that's going through an update process this year. They include promoting the city and the region as a tourist destination, focusing on sporting events, fostering a culture of entrepreneurship, collaborating with educational institutions to equip the local workforce, business attraction and retention, and of course, revitalizing the West End. The transportation and circulation element focuses on all modes of transportation, bike, ped, vehicle, transit, and the airport. Many of the findings and recommendations in this element flow from the MPO's long-range transportation plan that focuses on concurrency management, making sure the roadways operate at an acceptable level of service and provide good circulation to and through the community. We're also focused on roadway maintenance as part of our general operations, which is a high priority of the community as revealed through the surveys. The main challenge there, as you're well aware, is the drop in HERF funding, which falls below what is needed to keep up with the maintenance needs across the entire community. The public works staff, of course, does a good job prioritizing what gets done using their pavement conditions inventory software. And you can see on this slide the goals and strategies of the general plan focus on improving roadway design to accommodate all modes of transportation in a stress-free and safe manner. Providing complete streets is a central tenet of livable communities. They were considered during the major update to our land development code through the roadway design manual that you approved this year. Continue to fine-tune our transit routes to better serve the public, which is experiencing record ridership since the free fare was implemented earlier this year. And then implementing the recommendations of the airport master plan to maximize its potential and to serve as another economic engine for the city's growth will be a key focus in future years. Our general plan will continue to be strong on the environment and making sure that we don't lose the essence of why people are attracted to Sierra Vista in the first place. This chapter provides good background information on past and current efforts to conserve water and energy, the goals and strategies, support opportunities to maximize renewable resources, reduce waste through reuse and recycling, encourage alternative modes of travel, manage land uses to protect the natural functions of the floodplain, maintain high air quality standards, and ensure water conservation and quality protection. Parks and open space element borrows heavily from the Parks Master Plan that was developed 3 years ago. We assessed every park relative to its existing condition, needs, and developed a capital improvements program for the council to consider over the next decade. The overarching goals and strategies are intended to offer and promote a full range of park and recreational opportunities for all ages and abilities in the community. They will continue to focus on leveraging partnerships, facilitating sports tourism, again, as an economic driver, enhancing the range of park experiences, both passive and active, and ensuring parks are accessible and well-maintained, creating a beautiful setting that respects cultural landscapes, natural resources, and the overall environment.
Matt, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but we keep missing parts of the slides. Can you see that arrow, the two arrows? Would you be able to use this?
It's big on our
If we,
screen.
Do I need to zoom out?
Yes.
I think you just need to maximize your window with the, or that, yeah.
Or
that
that.
works.
Or that.
Yeah, okay. Sorry
Someone
about
took
that.
did a really nice job putting these
Yeah.
slides together. I just want to.
I
And
don't
I'll,
want to
I'll
miss
put
that
them,
swimmer.
I'll send them out too by
He wants
separate
to-
email. Appreciate the
No,
compliment.
thank you.
Okay. Moving on to public facilities. The city, of course, prides itself on the level and quality of services it offers to residents. Our central mission is to be proactive, responsive, and effective. We have top-notch law enforcement that meets or exceeds accreditation for law enforcement agencies and standards. Our fire department does the same with the National Fire Protection Standards. We are well prepared for natural disasters and are always looking to be more proactive and improve our readiness. In my opinion, the public library is the best looking building in the city, and what's inside its walls is even more impressive. With the diverse programming that is offered, we offer a business-friendly approach to development that advances community objectives. We are respectful of the natural environment in citing our public facilities and have implemented low-impact development projects to improve stormwater design. You can see that right outside of City Hall. And we're always looking to improve our processes to provide high-quality customer service. In fact, that's one of your strategic plan objectives this year. This is the last chapter. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Most of us would agree that arts, culture, and humanities are essential for community vitality, uniqueness, and quality of life. The central goal of this element is to create an environment where arts, humanities, and culture flourish. The Arts and Humanities Commission recognizes the need to review and update the Art Vista master plan that was last prepared 30 years ago. We have, of course, unique assets to build upon. We're starting to capitalize on our status as the hummingbird capital of Arizona, which could play into future artistic endeavors. Improving streetscapes through decorative lighting and entry features, promoting public and private partnerships, and marketing available grants, exploring collaborations like we saw with the mural painted behind the Oscar Erun Center with the college through our neighborhood partner program, as well as the West Sierra Vista Partnership grants for private properties. We've seen a number of murals and sculptures there. So there's a lot of opportunity to explore during the update of this master plan. Just to sum up, a general plan at its core is a long-term vision that captures what the community wants to be in the future. The places we all love have resulted from some level of planning and organized interests working together. Vista 2040 is both backward and forward-looking. And we incorporated and mined the best ideas from previously adopted plans and studies that still remain valid. So it's part retro and elaboration of the work done by my predecessors. At the end of the day, we're striving to achieve balance, harmony between the public and private interests, which sometimes can be at odds with each other. Many of the comments that we receive relate to specific improvements or capital projects within specific areas of the city. The goals of the general plan are intended to help guide you in setting and developing your future strategic plans that then get factored into capital improvement plans and budgets in future years to maybe implement some of those suggestions. It sets a direction that's flexible enough to accommodate the inevitable changes that will occur over the next decade, guided by your leadership. Finally, I do want to state that the statutes require a supermajority vote on the plan when it comes before you on Thursday, following the public hearing. And again, it comes to you with a unanimous vote by the Planning and Zoning Commission and a belief that we have considered the comments received from the commissions and the public through this interactive process. And with that, I'll answer any further questions.
Thank you, sir. Questions, comments for?
I made a comment.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I really appreciate you talking to us about it again tonight. I know that it came through a lot of different people put their hands in and gave a whole lot of passion and effort into making it a really good plan. And I've seen how big of a push there was to get it out there for the public to see. The QR code on the website, in person, there was a big push and a lot of opportunities for the public to provide feedback, and I really appreciate that. And I hope that people will continue to look at it and review it, because it's even though it's a large document, it's a really good document as well.
Councilman Benny?
Same. I want to iterate, thanks for all the hard work put into this. And I know it's a big process. I don't think anyone on the dais was here when 2030 was adopted and then ratified. So what happens from Thursday to November? So if we adopt
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Benning, we'll continue to work with our Public Affairs Office to broadly communicate with the public
Okay.
on the question that will be on the ballot and encourage them to review the document in full. Short of that, we'll provide some brochure material that really reduces it down to the essential elements of the plan for them to consider ahead of the vote. Okay. What we don't want is 10% of the people skipping over the question this time.
Agreed.
And really, hopefully, signing with approval.
Okay. And then with the ballot language, is that going to come before us, or
The what?
the ballot language?
I'll cover that.
I think that's in
an
the-
item down on the agenda a little bit.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. That's it.
Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question. When do you propose that you might have like the smaller pamphlet that we can
Pass out.
passing out? Do you know?
I think we can collaborate on that and have something up on the web within the next few weeks.
Okay. All right, great. Okay, thank you.
And I'll shoulder most of that. Use you for editing. So signing them.
Right to
Right to
Adam. He's like, don't look at me.
Well, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Thank you for your hard work.
Yep.
Continuing for the 2040 plan. Our next discussion will come, discussion and possible approval of Resolution 2024-043, tentative budget for fiscal year 24-25. Staff report, Ms. Yarborough.
Thank you, Mayor McCaw, members of council. So this resolution will adopt your tentative budget for fiscal year 24-25 in the amount of $172,359,341. And your adoption will cap the fiscal year 25 budget pursuant to state law. Your final budget can be equal to or less than that amount, but it cannot exceed that amount. There were 3 changes made since your special budget work session a couple weeks ago. Those are detailed in the memo, but we realized we had missed one of our fire battalion chief positions, and so that reclassification amount was added and some budget adjustments made for that. Then we updated the Metropolitan Planning Organization's budget. We used the current fiscal year's budget as a placeholder until their numbers are turned in, and so that was updated. And then finally, there was a potential grant for runway rehabilitation and a new taxiway connector that were added in the airport fund. And the change Chuck mentioned earlier will be made for the final budget and detailed. It doesn't change the numbers, and so won't change your budget cap at all. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Questions, discussion? Thank you, ma'am. We'll go to our next new business item. Resolution 2024-044.
Oh,
Staff report, Mr. Selena. Are you on there, sir?
I am, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, pleasure to be with you. Sorry if I have to be virtually. I will see you on Thursday accordingly. The item that is before you is a resolution approving a refunding of presently existing charter schools. There are 2 charter schools. They are looking to refund the existing bonds and to reduce the interest rate that the schools have to pay. There is really no new money going into this, so it's strictly a refunding from that perspective. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any question, and of course, as a reminder, Sierra Vista IDA nor the city, neither one of them have any financial risk associated with the Sierra Vista IDA revenue bonds. The risk is borne by the purchaser. In this case, it will be a bank purchase of these bonds.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Oh, I got
Oh,
it.
okay. Any questions, discussions?
We've done a number of these, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we're gonna do one more after this. So thank you, sir. And we go to resolutions 2024-045. So, and your IDA is 15 million, sir.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is basically a sister organization to the first one. The bank is looking at them collectively, but they do have 2 different charter contracts, and they have different school locations. But they have a commonality of executive director and some of the board positions. Again, it will be a refunding of the 2 existing bond issues that they have, as well as in this case, new money to add more facilities, not a new location, just changes to their existing facilities. The only one that is interesting here, and this is a little bit different, unlike the first one, the bonds are not yet callable, and therefore these will be issued as taxable bonds, will have a slightly different interest rate until that redemption date is reached, at which point, again, because of your action, they will become tax exempt. So it will change interest rate, but that is allowed for in the documents. And again, this is a bank purchase of the bonds, so there is no public offering document or anything like that.
Questions? Any questions? Thank you, sir. And we'll see
Thank you. I will see you on Thursday.
See you on
Yes.
Thursday. Safe drive down.
Safe travel.
Thank you.
Then we have our call to the public and comments and requests by the council. So that will be for Thursday. And for tonight, our first presentation is Ms. Young Hollis and Good Neighbor Alliance and Mr. Brad Rowland and the GNA crew. Hey,
Thank
Doctor.
you. I'm not sure how to
Thank
get
you.
into that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
William,
Perfect.
he knows what's going on with the money that he's being.
Thanks. All right. I know you guys are going to be on the agenda.
They're getting that presentation up. We do have a PowerPoint for you all. You have copies of it, and in the essence of time, I'm just going to start moving forward. And no worries, they have copies. So thank you all again for listening to us. We were here in January, letting you know the status of Good Neighbor Alliance. I applaud the Vista 2020 that you're working on, your new Vista 2024, excuse me.
2040.
Something that has been overlooked in that presentation is exactly what we're going to address today, and that's the unsheltered community. So normally I don't read slides to people, but these slides are super important, and I want to make sure that they're being highlighted. So these are some of the key statistics. There's been a 30%, and this is an overview in Arizona, and then we'll go into what it is locally. We have a 30% increase in the homeless population, which affects about 24,000 people. So again, that number may be underestimated.
What do you
Again?
attribute that to?
I was going to ask the same thing.
What do you attribute the increase to?
there are several factors that increase into it. Loss of jobs, loss of wages, increase in housing, lack of resources. Have I left anything out, Brad? I think
No, the newly homeless that are now
Right.
being evicted.
inflation, correct, yes.
Can't afford the rent, the increase in rent, things like that.
All right, thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. So there's been that significant rise, as you see, in the unsheltered homeless population. It has almost tripled from 2014 to 2023. And in 2023, there were approximately 7,600 people that experienced homelessness without any shelter. So zero shelter. So here in Arizona, as we've told you all before, GNA has 22 beds available. And depending on the configuration of who comes into the shelter, it is up or down, right? But there's 22 beds available. And we're at 98% capacity all of the time. As a matter of fact, there's a list of people that we turn away each day. Arizona has 20% fewer shelter beds available today compared to 2007. And despite the doubling the average spending per homeless person, shelter availability has declined. Yeah, this report isn't to make anybody feel good. Sorry. Again, you can see that the key statistics show that the numbers were the worst ever recorded for homelessness in the U.S. And again, you can see that how the population has increased in the homeless. When we stood before you before, we gave you these same numbers about what the average cost per person is in the shelter. It's $30 a day. Monthly cost is $20,000. Annual cost is $240. And this is just for the basics. It's for shelter staff, utilities, food, hygiene products, and general supplies. It also includes things like utilities, which is one of those, or, you know, the electric bill. When we're out soliciting for funds, everyone wants to do something very sexy, right? Like, we'll fund a new kitchen, or we'd like to donate paint. But what we really need is money to keep the lights on and to pay for staff. And again, here's our staffing costs broken down for you. And we ran over these in January. Please note that none of our shelter staff is paid at a market rate.
Real
Yes.
quick, I'm sorry.
Sure.
So the monthly cost and the annual cost, that's the shelter's cost. That's not per person, right?
Right, that's the
Okay.
that's the overnight operations of the shelter, because the shelter does much more. We're talking about the overnight operations of the shelter.
Yeah.
Right. One staff per shift. Okay, and again, the staff is paid at minimum wage. They're not paid at market rate. So here's what's been happening at the shelter. For 20 years, we've been in the community and we've relied on community donations. You can see where the funding range has come on a case-by-case basis. Our state has done a great job, the Arizona Department of Economic Security, the Department of Housing. Our legislatures have also gotten us emergency funding whenever we've needed it. They've been fantastic to call and say that we need more money in the shelter, and they've been able to find pockets of money at the state level to keep us to sustain us, excuse me. So these are inside the shelter, and we talked about this again in January. There's certain things that are covered by grants. So these are programs that are covered. It's the outreach program, the shower program, the day program that we had. And the day program has since gone away because that grant funding went away. So the restrictions then are those grant funds cannot be used for the day-to-day operations of the shelter. And again, we're talking about the overnight operations of the shelter. And so you can see when we're going out for grants, these are the constraints that we constantly come up against. You can't do anything for operational costs. And then you can see, again, things that are not covered, utilities and staff salaries. And this is where we need the money. So if you don't have a shelter, here's the things that you're looking at. Health issues. You're a spread of disease. Don't need to talk about that. I think that's pretty obvious. Mental health struggles and substance abuse. The shelter, you're not allowed to come into the shelter abusing drugs, correct? There's drug testing that happens. And so,
You just can't be under the influence.
yeah. Okay. This is one that I really want you to pay attention to. A 1% rise in poverty amounts to a 2.16 rise in crime rates and a 2.57% increase in violent crimes. So, you can fund a shelter, or you can pay on the back end by taxing your police department and your hospitals. And again, here's that economic impact. Your healthcare costs, your property values, because now you're going to have our unsheltered communities living in public places. Again, your police department is very familiar with ARDF, my day job's properties, and we've had to call several times because we've had unsheltered people living in our dumpster, in our parking lots, and all around our spaces. So many businesses struggle with that same issue, and you're going to see more of that, which I talked about in that third bullet, the business environment. And again, that perceived safety and cleanliness issue. So this is the call to action. We'd like to see here at the shelter, or from the city, is a budget line item to support homeless shelters of $200,000. And you can do that through an RFP so that other shelters can participate. But I told you all before that our funding runs out from the grants that we have at the end of this month. And today is June 25th. So this is where we are today. And like I said, we were here in January with the same information and asking for the same thing. I've heard from people for us to please not close the shelter, and it is not a matter of us not wanting to close the shelter. It is a matter of financial constraints. And if we don't have the money to pay the utility bill or to pay staff, we can't stay in operation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, sir.
Can you quickly go over other organizations within the city you work with?
Yeah, Brad, other organizations that we work with and partner with in the city.
We partner with Simmons and DePaul, with Salvation Army, anybody that touches homeless services. We work with all of them. We have an MOU with some of them.
Okay.
Arrows End at Work, several.
Any leeway with the county?
Yes, so we've met with Rich twice, yes. And we have a meeting again July next week. And we're looking to do things within the department. Yes, the county will, in some way we know that the county will help, but they can't come up to the whole amount either. And this is here in the city. And like we've said before, when we're trying to get grants, they're always looking to see who supports you in your own community. And again, we've gone out and visited in other communities, and the cities support them through an RFP.
Who's currently doing an RFP right now?
Pardon me, Tempe.
What other cities are currently doing RFPs?
Tempe.
City of Tempe, for certain.
Okay.
That's where we got our information.
Mm-hmm.
And how are they?
They're funded through an RFP. Line item, an RFP was done.
Right up here.
Yeah, that way we can.
Yes.
What the city of Tempe explained to us is that they have a line item for human services in their city budget, and then they create the RFP, the request for proposals, around the human services, so.
For the scope of work.
For
Yeah.
the scope of work, for homelessness, homeless shelters, and they contain it within that line item.
Yeah.
And that's how they're able to fund. And I know the concern is if you help one organization, are there gonna be 47 more?
Yeah, but that's not what this
But
is.
that's
This
not
is
what
a line item
This is a line-
RFP
yeah. This is a
for
line
shelter.
item for homeless and shelter. And if there's another person who would like to do a shelter in Sierra Vista, we would be happy to help in any way, shape, or form. But there's nobody else in line behind us right now, so it's just us.
Mr. Mayor.
Sir.
How many homeless shelters are there in Cochise County?
Homeless shelters that do overnight, two.
Two?
Ours and the one in Bisbee.
Okay.
And there's 2 domestic violence.
Now, I also had a question regarding your staffing expenses here. You said staffing costs total $160 per year, $160,000 per year, but it excludes administrative staff. What does
Correct.
that mean?
So that includes, Brad doesn't get a salary from that. Dr. D doesn't get a salary. So we make it work for them
Okay.
as best as we can. But honestly, these two donate their time.
Okay, very good.
That's just to operate the shelter.
Yeah.
So we have people have a place to sleep.
Go.
Have y'all talked to the Cochise County Health Department?
Yes.
Because 50% of their budget comes from grants that pay operational expenses. So when you said grants aren't paying operational expenses, I don't see that.
Not for us for a shelter. That's going to a county. That's different. It's a whole different pot of money. It's a whole different way that it operates.
I'm tracking, but there are grants that will pay your operational
No,
expenses.
there are
None?
Occasionally.
Occasionally, but they're
Okay.
far and few in between, and
Okay.
none that we've seen in the past 5 years.
Okay.
How many beds does Bisbee have?
I think they're similar size to us,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit smaller, but I think.
It's
I'm not
hard for
certain.
me to believe that the county can't step up.
Yep.
I mean, it really is.
The
Well,
city
we're not-
can't
You know,
not
stop.
saying
you're
that
looking
they're
at
not.
us to solve your problems, but there's a bigger problem out there than just Sierra Vista.
Right, and we're working with the county
Yeah.
Do you know
and the health department.
the numbers you gave us for the statistics? They were Arizona wide. Do you know what our numbers are here in Sierra
We just know
Vista?
what we've been able to collect. I think that's not data that has been collected anywhere at
What was the last
city
tip
level.
count? Like, what was the last?
Recent pick count, 55 were in the city.
Okay.
here.
Thank you.
Now, has the Better Bucks and Better Works program impacted your operation at all?
No. I mean, again, because we need the money to operate, to pay for salaries and for utilities and day-to-day operations.
Okay, so-
So those programs will help individuals, but they will not help the shelter directly. I mean, indirectly through our guests, yes, but not directly.
And do you know off the top of your head all the fundraising efforts you currently have going on to raise those monies besides reaching out to us?
Yes, and as we had told you back in January, there's just been a decrease across the board in donations in any organization, nonprofit that you're looking at. So our donations are down, and they have been down, and they don't come up to this amount. And
So-
we rely strictly on donations for the shelter operations.
So what campaigns do you currently have going to raise
We
money?
have a couple campaigns in the works right now. But again, those campaigns aren't gonna launch for a couple months, and so this is where we are today.
Oh, I'd like to hear what they are, if she has that information.
Okay, sure.
So typically, we're unable to do things like fundraising dinners because you don't make a lot of money with that. I mean, you can do $50 or $60 a head per person, but by the time you're done paying for the place, the event spot, and the meal, if you walk away with $10 a head after that, so there's not a whole lot in that area. So now we're going to try increasing our ability for legacy giving so that folks can understand that we can be part of your legacy planning. We're looking at increasing what's something called crowdfunding, so what we can go after, we go after particular things, but then we ask for keep the lights on, help us keep our lights on, and we crowdfund for those particular things. And so, but we're mostly in the grant writing phase. So I have things, I have beds coming, I have new security systems coming so that everybody can stay safe, and we try to find programs, and that's what you're referring to when you talk about the county and how they're getting operational costs. What they've done is they've created a program. They've created the ability to get in a van and go somewhere, and it pays for that staff member in there. So I create as many programs with our staff as I can to get that piece done, but
And again, Carolyn, we have gone to all of the churches, and we do a presentation to all of the other nonprofits in the community as well.
Okay.
so those are like dribs. Those are dribs and 1,000 here, 500 there.
And we're appreciative, but it
Which
doesn't get us to the bulk.
We will absolutely take love, and I will come and speak to anybody, anytime. If any one of you have organizations, I'm out all the time doing that, and that brings us in the bits and pieces of that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's what you're doing.
Yes, ma'am.
So, I'm sorry, but you said that the other cities are, get their money through a, line,
Yes.
and what was that?
RFP.
A line item, they issue an RFP.
And I'm sorry, but what is that? I'm not good with
Request for
acronyms.
proposal.
Okay.
And they're very specific to overnight shelters.
Okay.
So if there's other shelters in the area, they would,
Tempe also built their own shelter as well.
Okay, and I still have another question. So, back there where you had, food, which I know it's still expense, but, I mean, and I know that there's a lot of people, because I go with, people the first Sunday, of the month to, do that. So how is that helping or not helping?
it's helping a lot. So here's the issue. You're providing meals for our residents.
Correct.
And our guests that are staying there. But if we can't afford to keep the lights on, you won't need to come feed.
Right, I understand, but I'm just trying to,
It helps on us having to provide food, so it absolutely does that.
Okay.
But still, there's still this huge gap then.
right.
And we appreciate you coming and cooking, so this is
Right,
we're
no,
very
I
appreciative.
understand. Yeah,
Okay, I just
yeah,
want to be sure that you
I'm
understood
just
that.
trying to figure
Yeah.
out, how that whole thing,
It all
is-
helps, but again, we
Right.
have a utility bill every month, we have
Right.
salaries every month.
So, and then my other question, have you, which I have not seen you, but have you guys gone to the joint services meeting, which is the
Yes.
first Friday of,
Father Greg goes to those quite often.
Yeah.
So yes, we have been there.
okay, but you haven't been there recently, have you? Because I go every Friday and I have not seen.
I don't know. This is our board.
Okay.
This is our board.
Okay, the reason I know that, again, it's another group, but I don't believe that, I have not seen you guys there, and I just know that that would be another, again, it's small amounts, but all, they do add up, so I would invite you
Thank you
to
very
come
much.
back, and give that presentation, because, I just know that that's all the services there mainly together, so it'd be a great, opportunity once again, not that it helps this very second,
but
but,
thank you so much for
Yeah,
that.
so it's the first Friday
Okay.
at 10:30 at the VFW.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
You have
yes,
one?
yes, sir.
And it's the first Friday of the month, did you say? Thank you.
Now, Ms. Hollis, you have mentioned keeping the lights on. Have you approached
We
SSVEC?
certainly have, and SSVEC cannot give us a reduced rate on our utilities. SSVEC, however, has contributed, and they are donors. They're
Okay,
regular
because,
donors.
they do so much philanthropic work
Yeah, we had
throughout the
asked if they
county.
could do a roundup. So I'm meeting again with Jason. I've had lunch with him a couple times, and they do support us. And we did ask if we could get some sort of a reduced rate or something like that. But the other thing that we are trying to do is do a roundup for the shelter. Normally those are for households, but we're trying to work something so that we can do the roundup at the shelter also. So thank you for that.
Okay.
So- Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, so you said no more funding after June 2024. What happens July 2024 if y'all don't get help from the city?
Pray. I mean, honestly, we'll have to start to shut down. But in the meantime, we're hoping that doesn't happen. And we have had some people outside of the area that are willing to step up and help. But again, this is our community.
And one of the reasons I asked, we're set to vote on the budget that we've had in place. So even getting a line item added to a budget at this point is a lot of work. So coming up with 200,000 or trying to find 200,000 we could either take from Peter to pay Paul, however you may want to look at it, makes it difficult. Not hard, but makes it difficult. So just trying to see where we're at. July, if we have leeway here, since this is now coming before us the second time, and you came before, but to look at it and work at it together to see, okay, what can we do? Where can we pull from? Find out what the county, because it's not just, it's not just a GNA issue, it's a city issue, it's our issue. It's a county issue and then a state issue. So where are the players coming together to help solve this problem with, Sierra Vista, surrounding areas, Cochise County, and seeing what they're going to bring to the table. So one entity is not saying, okay, we'll flip and we'll cover this amount, and then the county, for instance, saying, okay, well, Sierra Vista has it covered, now we don't have to do anything.
Yeah, no, that's not what we are asking for. So this 200,000 is our total ask.
Yeah.
So if you all can come in at 100,000, that keeps us running for a couple more months.
It's not guaranteed.
Yeah.
Not guaranteed. Any other
Other
questions?
questions?
Oh, I,
Yes, ma'am.
well, it does and does not have to kind of deal with it. So I was gonna ask this question. So my question is, you know, you have 22 beds, but usually like when, I come to help, you know, cook and serve, there's like, we feed maybe 10, 12 people. I mean, and I realize some of them are working, but I was like, how is that, like, that you're not feeding all of them at, you know, at each?
Depends on the configuration of a family. So if we have a family of 4 in one room, or we have 2 people in one room, that takes care of that room, so.
Even though there's more beds, we can't put more people in.
Right, but I'm saying, but I understand that, but the feeding, why don't all of them come to eat, is my question.
They're
Do you know?
probably going somewhere else to eat, where they can stay, or we're out on the street, or they're going over to Salvation Army, or somewhere else to get fed.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. Sorry.
And again, thank you.
So I would like to see what the county is going to do. I can reach out to Rich.
Yeah, we have, as a matter of fact, I just saw him at the post office on my way here, and we do have a meeting with his different departments on Tuesday, I believe. And we're sitting down with departments. He did have a meeting with all of his department heads, gave them the presentation. Brad and I are going back there on Tuesday. Several of the departments inside the county do have some ideas for us, so we will be meeting with the department heads
On Tuesday?
on Tuesday.
Is, and I'm sorry to ask this late, is Bisbee reaching out and trying to get line item?
No, but Bisbee Bisbee has a benefactor, but what I've learned is that the way their budget also works, they can only draw on the interest, which I was going to tell you. They can only draw on the interest from the benefactor. So they're starting to struggle as well. But they have that benefactor. It was a very large benefactor.
Any other questions, discussion? Ma'am? All right, yes, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Miguel.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Miguel.
Brad.
Thank y'all.
Appreciate it. Okay, next item, item Charlie, is presentation by the Environmental Stewardship Commission on recycling. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hey.
Okay. Uh-oh. It was working. Uh-oh. I'll just start my introductory comments then.
There.
So, good afternoon. Wait, is that one? Okay, that's down. Okay. My name is Joelle Buffa, and I'm an appointed member of the Environmental Stewardship Commission, and there's a number of other commissioners here as well. Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for establishing these commissions. It's allowed myself and other citizens to learn more about how the city operates and appreciate the work that staff and elected officials are doing. At our first few meetings, the commissioners would go around the room and introduce themselves, as well as the other participants, and say why they were interested in being part of the EEC, or Environmental Stewardship Commission, ESC, and recycling, which is kind of a shorthand for the other R's, which are reduce, reuse, and recycle, was mentioned by just about everyone. So in February, we formed the recycling subgroup, of which I'm the coordinator. And we have the goal of exploring, expanding, and promoting opportunities for recycling in Sierra Vista. So our purpose today is we want to share with you some of the projects and ideas that we've developed for reducing Sierra Vista's waste stream, and we'd be interested in your feedback and suggestions. So this first slide shows things that our commission has accomplished working together with some of the staff's planning, public works, and the public affairs staff. So we've provided recommendations. Matt gave that nice presentation overview. We provide some of those recommendations to the Vista 2040 environmental goals. And our members have also updated the city's Where to Recycle webpage. We've written periodically tips and little suggestions on how to reduce, reuse, and recycle that have been published in the city's newsletter and social media. And we've had some coverage by the Herald for our work. So one of the first group activities, we wanted to look at the history of recycling in the city. And the graph, the percentage of households participating in recycling is the left-hand side. And so apart from the city's exemplary green waste curbside pickup and kind of the informal drop-off that the city animal shelter runs for aluminum cans to support their programs, you can see from this slide that residential recycling has declined substantially in the past few years. So just a quickie overview. I know many of you are familiar intimately with the recycling in the city, but just an overview. The operation of the mixed stream curbside pickup that the Sierra Vista did for quite a few years, that service ceased in 2019 when the foreign markets for recyclables collapsed and the new buyers required higher standards for they wanted less contamination in the recycle stream. And then the city tried a drop-off center that was took care of the contamination issue because it was sorted by staff, and that was operated for about 9 months in late 2019, early 2020. And then in 2020, you can see there was a drop-off, and I'll get my next slide, I'll kind of explain some of that. But in 2020, the council amended the solid waste ordinance and allowed private recycling collectors. So in the past 4 years, there's been little recycled materials that have been diverted from the waste stream, and that was concerned our work group. So the next thing we did was looked at, whoa, what happened there? Okay. We looked at some of the barriers and pros and cons of the different things that the city has tried over the years. So as many of you know, the downside to the curbside recycling was contamination. And so although participation was around 60%, which was considered high in a national average, there was contamination and there was transportation costs as well, even though it was convenient and free for residents. The city residential drop-off, which was tried, did get rid of the contamination, but there was a big drop-off in the participation. So one of the reasons for that could have been that it was sort of an out-of-the-way location, and it wasn't, something people were used to doing and had to go out of their way. So because of the staff time and what we were getting for the recycled materials, that was dropped because it wasn't cost effective. So in 2020, the city voted to allow the private collectors, and for the first year or so, it was operated by a local business, and it was fairly reasonable comparatively to what it is now. It was about $12 a month. After about a year, it was bought out, I was told, by Recyclops, which is a national organization or business that operates out of state. And they raised the rates considerably to where it's between $29 and $36 a month. So right now there's very low participation, could be because of cost. Also, the company doesn't really market or advertise really well. It's kind of hard to find out. Some people don't even know there's a curbside service. But it's got a low participation. I'm a customer. I'm one of 629 customers they have, according to the statistics they gave me a couple of months ago. Mm-hmm. So in 2020, many of you might have been here and remember that it wasn't an easy decision to go to a private collector. There was a lot of discussion, and the mayor affirmed that the city is not giving up on recycling. The mayor at the time, Mr. McClea, but and said that they will continue to look for ways and opportunities to recycle in the future. And this was echoed by Councilman Calhoun at the time, was Councilwoman encourage city staff, Environmental Affairs Commission, and the citizens to look for ways on how it might be reestablished, municipal recycling. So given that, our work group got to thinking that the city would be open to considering options for improving recycling. And our next kind of mission was to look and see what other adjacent communities, nearby communities, and also similar sized communities in Arizona were doing. And we collected a lot of information, and because of time constraints, I'm not going to go into everything we found out. Communities have figured it out, but I just want to focus on the example of Bisbee because they are a good model for solving the problems of both contamination and the cost of transporting recycled materials long distances, which is what we're faced here in Sierra Vista. So Bisbee operates a supervised fenced drop-off center, which you can see in the upper left-hand corner. It's drive-through, and there's separate bins for separate categories of materials. So people throw the cans, for example, in the can barrel. And so what Bisbee then does, it's next to their transfer station, and it's also very conveniently located. It's a mile away from Safeway, so a lot of people drop off their recycles on the way to shopping and other things. But Bisbee then compresses and bales each material separately. And what that does, that's a key, we feel, to why they're reducing costs of recycling. So they're compressing and baling, and then they take mixed loads, which are shown in this lower photo here, a flatbed, goes to Bisbee and sells this recycled materials. And we think the compressing and baling is one key to reducing the cost. The little chart here I have, one of our members of the recycle group did an analysis of the estimated fuel cost of moving a truck of loose cardboard to Tucson versus compressed and baled. So when my understanding is when the city was taking mixed recycles, we were not compressing and baling it. So it was more expensive. So that you can see here by compressing and baling it, taking the air out, reducing the volume, you're able to make a lot fewer trips because you can take 8 or 9 times as much compressed cardboard as loose cardboard. So anyway, the bottom line is, in the last 2 columns there for you to look at. Bisbee also has been working with the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality and getting grants to do some of these things, and has recently received a grant for a glass crusher. And so they're not going to be transporting their glass to Tucson, but using it locally for building materials. So that leads us to potential actions and ideas that we've come up with that the commissioners could work with and our recycle group could work with the support of City Council and also interacting with the public affairs or public works staff like we have been in the past. So, a lot of you may question, okay, with Sierra Vista residents, is this model of Bisbee's even applicable? Would our residents use a drop-off center? So one of the first things we think of is important is to conduct a marketing study and perhaps using the city's Engage platform to see what the attitudes are and what the willingness is of Sierra Vista residents for like the new thing in recycling, the new paradigm of recycling. So that's one action. And by short-term actions, we're thinking those would be things that could be done with little or no cost, but would involve some staff time. Another thing is to sort of test the waters with a small step and reinstate the glass recycling drop-off point that used to be at the Public Works parking lot. And perhaps exploration could be done with Bisbee to see if, instead of transporting that materials to Tucson, if Bisbee would be interested in that material for their glass crusher and construction materials. And then we have been working with the public work staff and public affairs to write recycling tips, and we'd like to continue to do that and maybe increase the frequency of those tips that are in the different publications and outreach materials that the city has. This is just quickly, we included, one of our members put together some sample questions. Of course, if we went forward with this in the Engage platform, we would be working closely with the city staffs to refine those questions to make them applicable to the city's operations and what would be possible.
How would number 4 pan out? Extra fee on your bill or utility bill, SSVEC, will you be partnering with them?
That's just like, that wasn't completely well thought out, but one of the ideas we had is, if we were to put, Bisbee actually has a separate line item on their refuse bill for collecting, they have like an $84 fee per year per household to pay for their recycling program. So that if the city wanted to start a recycling program again, then it would have to be funded somehow. We have some other thoughts on that too as well, but yeah, that's where that's coming from. Thank you. So anyway, moving on to medium-term actions. These would involve a little bit more city involvement. One thought we had is that perhaps the city could partner with local businesses for a cardboard drop-off center. There's local businesses, a number of them in the town have balers, and they get money for cardboard. It's a valuable material, so perhaps there'd be a business or two centrally located, so it would be easy for residents to drop off their cardboard. Another idea is making recycling fun. In doing our research, we found that cities were getting creative, and this is more in the kind of reuse idea of the 3 R's: recycle, reuse, reduce. That having an art competition in conjunction with Art in the Park or some other city event might be kind of a fun thing to get people thinking about recycling. And then the city may want to form a task force to evaluate providing additional services with a focus on reducing that $64 a ton drop fee in light of some of the new market factors and technology that's come about with recycling. Okay, and so longer term actions, from our research we've learned that while the cost of recycling can be reduced by some of the things I talked about, it's unrealistic to expect it to pay for itself. Therefore, partnering with others in the community could further balance the equation. We know that the Arizona law prevents the city from gifting money to businesses or other entities, but we thought that perhaps an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, could be a way for partners in the community like Fort Huachuca, businesses, other entities that would have a common goal of reducing the waste stream. And for example, Fort Huachuca, being a DOD facility, it has a mandate to divert their waste and recycle. So they could be a potential partner, as well as Bisbee. They have already worked with the ADEQ to be part of this hub and spoke recycling model for rural Arizona, which the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality is advancing to try to help communities get grants and partner with each other. So with that, my last slide is just a summary. Trying to make you laugh. Anyway, some actions we're asking for council support or feedback on moving forward with. One was the resident survey about recycling attitudes and what they would be willing to do or pay. Second, we really appreciate the outreach that's been published on our tips for recycling. We'd like to do that more frequently and maybe have a commitment that we'd have one a month in either the newsletter or the little newspaper that comes out, or social media, and we're willing, members, are eager to write those. And then restarting the glass recycling drop-off, just to sort of test the waters, a small step forward. And glass is heavy, and could make a lot of difference in the landfill dump fee costs. And then finally, looking into partnerships with other entities to expand and collaborate on recycling efforts. And with that, that's all.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Questions?
Are we allowed to ask questions?
No, yes.
Okay. So my question was, you mentioned about, the baling. So have you contacted any stores yet that would be interested in like taking the city's cardboard to bale?
Actually, we've been a little bit reluctant to, as part of like a commission, we didn't want to go to a business. We have people on our commission that are willing to do that, but we thought we needed the go-ahead from the council to be able to do that.
Okay, I understand that, but then I have another question. So, being that to compress and bale all of these, has anybody checked on the price of the machine that would cost, for that? Okay.
Sharon knows.
Well, there was a couple things I heard. I thought we used to have one. Sharon said we used to have one, but loaned it to the county.
We did. So I can clarify that a little bit. I'm not sure what a current baler costs. I can tell you they are not inexpensive. We're talking six figures.
Mm-hmm.
So the city did have a baler for a number of years when we were running our own recycling program. Then we started taking our recyclables to the Cochise County Transfer Station, and they were the ones that were dealing with the recyclables at that point. And I'm not sure because I wasn't in my current position at the time. I know the baler was transferred to Cochise County. I don't know if it was sold to Cochise County or if it was by agreement given to Cochise County, but that's where the baler went to do exactly what Joelle was talking about in terms of baling the materials to reduce the air and make it easier to get them to market. What has become of that baler since? Last I saw, it was still sitting out at the county transfer station, but I admittedly haven't been out there in a while. So I believe it is still around. Whether it is in operating order, I don't know. But regardless, all of our waste is obligated to Cochise County by agreement.
And that includes recycling.
That's where all of our recyclables were going, yes.
And that's the agreement that we have.
Chuck?
Yeah, Mayor McCaw, Councilmember Misber, all of our solid waste is committed to Cochise County and the county solid waste system. So the county was doing the actual recycling. Then they were transporting the recyclables to Tucson or wherever they could find a market to sell it. And for a bit, it was actually making some money. The money would go into the landfill fund and help keep the tipping fees low for landfill disposal at the time. When the market collapsed, and of course the costs, et cetera, they couldn't make any money at it. Fewer and fewer recyclables were marketable, and at that point, that's when we had to make the difficult decision to get out of the business at that time. So,
and just to add to that, the county was willing to continue, but obviously they were going to charge us the cost of doing that because it was not a break-even system anymore.
But they still have drop-off at the transfer station, so there's still an opportunity to recycle there.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, a quick question, I guess the commission's idea, how are we gonna promote this if, when we did away with the city-sponsored or curbside pickup, residential pickup, and moved to drop-off, we were at about an 8 or 9% participation rate. How are we gonna increase that if we went back to a drop-off location?
Yeah, it's actually less than 1% right now. It's 629 households. It's 629 households. Is their customer?
No, I understand. I'm talking when we did 2018-19 timeframe. I want to say it was mid-July timeframe, when we did away with curbside and went to drop-off, the participation rate was only around 8%. How do we increase that if we started another drop-off location?
Well, yeah, we've thought about that, and one of the solutions we have is to locate a drop-off center in a more centralized location and do more outreach and promotion of that, because people had to drive out to the transfer station, and so our thought is that if you have it in a centrally located area near where people are shopping, like Bisbee does, that people will just say, oh, okay, well, I'll just take my recycles when I go to Walmart or, the mall, there's some space there, perhaps a centrally located station. Maybe we could partner with a local business there that has a baler that could be operated near Home Depot or Best Buy or one of those big box stores that had a baler, could potentially bring some more activity and business to the mall if it was in that location. So there's a lot of opportunities, I think, that are maybe better located. And it would take, we'd have to work to analyze that and do more research.
Yes, ma'am, tracking.
I like your marketing study. How long do you think it'll take to get a full study done? 30 days, 60? What's your time frame that y'all are looking at for a marketing study?
I would have to talk to more of a marketing expert to be able to answer that question. I don't know the answer to that. We could certainly find out. That would be something, if you were interested in it, we would
say
contact a marketing study or contact a marketing expert and find out. If there's none in the city, I don't know. I mean, do you have any idea from using Engage with other?
Well, Engage, just doing a survey, that would be a shorter time frame type thing. I would think 30 days would probably be sufficient, to gather information. A full-fledged marketing study would be, I would think, a longer time frame, and I wouldn't be able to guess on the cost of that right now. One of the things the commission and I have discussed, and, they've been great to work with on this. We've gone back and forth with feedback, different ideas, pros, cons, everything along the way. So this has been a discussion that's been ongoing for a couple months. One of the challenges is the idea of, the commission introduced the idea of potentially looking at a 501c3 and starting a recycling program through a 501c3, which is a model that's been done by Sedona, which I thought was a very interesting model. But then we have to determine at what point that would divest from the commission and become its own separate operation. And if we are doing a survey using the Engage platform, we have to be mindful of the fact that any questions we're asking are things that would inform city operations and not necessarily those of the 501c3, which is now a private entity. So it gets complicated depending on which direction it goes, which could still be a variety of different options at this point in time.
So, quick question to follow up on that question. How much would, to do an Engage 1 month survey on just down and dirty, do you recycle? If so, where would you be interested? How far would you be willing to drive? I want to kind of shy away from money questions because, like you said, it could lead to other things. But just a quick down and dirty, small sample size of the community that would participate. Is that something we could do for rather cheap on Engage or with an Engage survey?
Adam's in the best position to answer that question since he runs that.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Benning, yeah, we can absolutely do that at no cost, but we'd want to leverage our kind of in-house free marketing materials. So I'd probably wait for like a Vistas cycle to include that in the survey period, and then we'd do a lot of earned media and just kind of publicize it as well as we could for free. So we could absolutely pursue that. That is not necessarily a statistically valid study, as Sharon mentioned, but we could definitely kind of gauge the pulse that way.
Okay.
Okay, that's it.
I like that. I mean, I don't know if anyone else does.
I like that.
Comments.
Okay,
Good.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming and giving this presentation. I really appreciate all the time and effort that was in your discussions and gathering the information and things like that. I know that when I talk to people, recycling does come up a lot. A lot of people, they want to recycle. We used to recycle back in the day, and I remember, like, I'm not really sure, what's being talked about in schools now, but I remember when I was in third grade, we talked about that, and I remember going home and telling my mom, we have to recycle. And they had, in one of our grocery stores in the parking lot, they had a big bin where you would put, like, your plastics, your cans and things like that, and that was a really cool thing that we had and that we did. And so I think something like that, because going out, even though service is small, I mean it is kind of out of the way to go out there. So I do like the idea of having some sort of central location where as people are going out and doing their errands, they can do something like that. I think that would be really cool. I also really appreciate the things that I've seen things on social media, but there was something about cardboard recently.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate seeing that. I think that's really cool. Maybe something that people maybe have not considered before. And if people can start doing that, that would be great, because cardboard takes up a lot of room and
Yeah.
stuff. So if you're able to do something.
One of the things that our group worked on, there's actually a lot of different things that can be recycled at the drop-off center. And there's a city website that, has it been updated yet?
Yes.
Yay, it has been. One of our group did work on updating where you can take cardboard, where you can take batteries. And actually the school, getting things into the schools was also one of our ideas, but we had to boil it down for this presentation.
Go ahead, yes, sir.
I just want to bring up, we got I don't know if it's a vote. Where's Jill? We're at 4:30, so to extend, we got to come to a consensus.
If you have a consensus that you're willing to go a little more time, yes.
Consensus?
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay.
It's just
Couple more
Let's do it.
questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Jill.
Thanks, Jill. Any more
I was going to
questions?
say some more
Go ahead.
about it. I was going to talk a little bit more about it. But yeah, like, and letting people know what they should recycle and what they can recycle and where. I think that's very helpful, because sometimes if you don't know, you just throw it in the trash. So I do like the idea of kind of checking the pulse and seeing what people's thoughts are, and if maybe people know that if it's a possibility, maybe more people will be willing. So I really think that's really interesting. And then also finding creative things to do, like art in the park contest, where you art from recycled materials. I am a part of a reduce, reuse, recycle group on Facebook, and there's all kinds of really cool things that people do with stuff that maybe people aren't aware of. And so maybe somebody's looking for a hobby and they go to that and they're like, oh, this is really neat, I want to do this. So I think that's really cool. It's also a great way to get people to kind of engage with each other, bring people together, like-minded people. So I think that's a really good way to get people involved with each other in the community and with a really good purpose. So that's really cool. So yeah, and I also really appreciate this last page that you have summed everything up. I really appreciate that. So I'm not really sure what the time frame would be or what we would need. Like maybe we need to demand our baler back. I don't know. But yeah, I'm really interested to see kind of where this would go and kind of what would it take to do. I mean, anything. I mean, we probably can't have what we had before, but any little thing that we could do. That people are willing to do, I think it would be great. And then if anybody's not taking their aluminum cans to the shelter, shame on you, and you can start today. But yeah, I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to learning more and seeing how this progresses.
So we have 3. I know I would like to see the study or go forward study. Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Well, and yeah, I would just like, I mean, all this information is great, but me, I'm at the cost person, so I want to know if we could partner with, I'm just a business that has a baler and they're willing, how would that, is that going to save us money? So for us to recycle, if we give a glass to Bisbee, what are we going to get in return for that?
Well, one thing you'll get in return is you will be saving $64 a ton in you're paying $64 a ton now for every trash dump. So all of the glass that isn't getting recycled
Right.
is
Is
part of the cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, okay, but, and then if we have to buy a new machine, I'd like to know how much, all of that cost, or, how would that be?
Right.
So that's what I'm interested in of that.
Got it. Yes,
So,
ma'am.
Well, I also agree with that. Thank you for all the research you all put. I feel like
Well, it was,
you have
it was a team effort.
Yeah, you all have, your commission has a better understanding than most people, like people while we were going through this had. And so I'm really impressed, and I really appreciate all the time it took and the meaningful thoughts put in here. And there's a lot of good ideas worth considering in here. While you're up here, I want to ask a few questions, just because I don't remember some of these things the same way that it's in here. And you said the current private recycler has 629 customers. Do you remember, Sharon, do you remember how many people were participating in our drop-off? It says like 5%, but that seems high.
Yeah, Councilwoman Humphrey, I don't believe I don't recall that we got addresses from people or anything like that, so I don't really have numbers on how many were participating in drop-off. It would be a guesstimate at best on that. And then along with that, one of the things Joelle and I talked about as she was preparing for this presentation is the number of bins that were out before. So the 60%, 60-ish percent, where that comes from is that was a set out rate, and that was estimated by our drivers as they were out on the routes. So it's a snapshot in time. As our drivers are going around, how many bins are out on a Thursday or an average Friday? So that was their best estimate. What we don't know, which is critical, is what was in those bins.
Exactly.
And how full those bins were. Because when we introduced the curbside drop-off program and we went to the 1-in-1, and Joelle and I have talked about this, we had people that told us flat out, you're not taking my second garbage pickup away, and I will just throw my garbage in the blue bin, and you won't even know about it. And unfortunately, they did that. Our contamination rates indicate they did that. Did we have many people that were doing it right or trying to do it right? Yes, we had those too. But I did want to, emphasize that is the set out rate. It was the best we could estimate at the time, but we don't have any data on how full those bins were, what was actually in them. We just don't have that information.
Yes, ma'am.
And Carolyn, if you remember, I think the reason we went straight to privatization after like 4 or 5 months was that fact that the number of curbside, the number of people that were dropping stuff off was low, and wasn't.
Right, because we had the drop-off down by the, was it at the refuse? Yeah.
It was at the compost facility.
Yeah, it was at the compost, right. And we were going to set up one on the west end and one, there was going to be another location by the mall. I don't remember. But we never got there because it was so poorly used. I feel like this isn't, this 629 might actually be higher than who was participating in the single stream drop off. If I remember, there was so few people actually and because it's not convenient.
Yeah.
But
I think, just to clear up where I got the 5%, there was a quote by the city when they closed the drop off, and the quote was, "We're getting volume 5% less, 95% volume drop off."
That sounds like a Sharon quote.
Yeah.
Well, and keep in mind that's volume compared to volume of mixed stream recyclables with garbage mixed in. That's where it gets complicated.
Yeah, and I think we're all pretty much in agreement that mixed stream recycle is not going to happen anymore. It's not, that's not a good model, and that's not where we're recommending going again.
And then I love that whoever it was on your commission took the time to break down the difference. It's fascinating. And fuel costs for the compressed cardboard and the loose load. But do we know, did you happen to ask Bisbee, or maybe somebody knows, how much it costs for Bisbee to operate the drop-off center they have?
The people that did, I'll ask part of the work group. I don't know if we actually ever got a cost from them. One of the group can correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, I'm sure that Matt Gurney, I think that's his name, that runs Public Works. I'm sure he has those figures for you.
I'm sure you could get them.
And I probably would rather give them to you than to one of our work group, but yeah.
And you said that cardboard was profitable again? Is it, because last I heard it wasn't. Oh, is it?
I heard too. I don't
Well, it
think
might have
so.
changed. She's
Well, I know that you can sell it.
Prices fluctuate.
okay. So it's
Yeah, I mean, profitable, you'd have to take a lot of factors in, like the distance transporting and that sort of thing, but yeah.
I was wondering if that.
Because of where we got to take it to.
But I love these ideas, and I'm interested in exploring some of these on the back page. But I really am impressed and grateful for your time and all
Okay.
this, and you presented it really well.
Oh, thank you. So any take-home messages for us as far as what you want us to move forward with? I mean, I did hear with the questionnaire, we'll certainly work with whoever we need to work with on that. As far as the glass recycling or the partnering with businesses, or reaching out to businesses to find out if anybody's interested in that, is that something you would want us to work
Well,
on?
I think the start of the consensus of the dais is that we proceed with the study, get with Adam, a quick study,
Surveys.
a survey
Surveys.
with Sharon. Yes, a survey, and to survey the public, so we can get a good sense of how to move forward with glass or cardboard.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm myself very interested.
Okay,
as
well, thank you for your time. I really
Thank
appreciate all
you.
your questions and
Appreciate it.
interest. Thank you.
Well, any other comments?
No, sir, I agree with you.
Okay.
Survey.
Thanks to
And
the
thank
work
y'all.
group and the commission.
Yes,
'cause they
thanks to
did
the
all
work group.
Thank you.
Thank you for showing up and enduring. So we go to item number Delta, notice of call to election and soliciting pro and con arguments. Ma'am.
I didn't run off this time. So, good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. I asked for this item on your agenda today because this is the third election that we've held since we changed from holding a primary and then carrying over to a general election. And there persists some confusion on our voters as to, I get calls every year, why didn't I get a city ballot at the primary? I got my mail-in ballot and there's no city race on it. And so call to election is not required by statute. However, I felt that this year I'm going to get out in front of it. So after the vote on the general plan on Thursday, I'm presuming it will pass, but I won't do anything until it actually does. There will be a notice of the call to election published in the Herald on Sunday. Okay. We're going to be on the website. We're going to get out with some press releases so that we can advise people before the primary not to look for a city question or candidates, and let them know, make sure that you vote in November because that's when the city's going to be doing their business. We are also opening up, because of the general plan, there is the opportunity for citizens to submit pro or con arguments in the voter pamphlet that we'll be doing for the general plan. And so there will also be an advertisement and stuff on the website explaining to them what they need to do and where to go if they would like to have their opinions published in the voter pamphlet. We do have the voter pamphlet professionally prepared. They translate it into Spanish, and it is distributed to every household in the Sierra Vista area. And so it does get out there. In answer to your question, the voter pamphlet will also have the ballot language in it. The ballot language for a general plan, because of all of the statutory nature of it, and because we cannot have any language whatsoever that's pro or con, it has to be very, very neutral. So it's very standard.
Okay, good.
And it'll mirror every other general plan question that they have in the state and that we used 10 years ago. So but I'd be happy to send out the pamphlet. We have a draft pamphlet ready if council would like to read it. It does summarize the general plan a little bit and talk about the elements and explain the process. And there's some voting information and where to go for vote centers and things like that in the pamphlet. And I'd be happy to send a copy out to y'all if you'd like to see it.
Thank you.
But that's about all I got.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll go to item number Echo, reports on recent trips, meetings, and future meetings. Guys,
Good.
welcome back, sir.
I'm good because of time. I had a whole bunch of trips, but it wasn't for the city, unfortunately.
None other? And future meetings, two discussion items, and council requests.
Okay, Mayor McCaw, members of the council, there will not be a regularly scheduled work session for July 9. Your next one will be on the 23rd. At that point, you'll be taking up the final budget. We don't have specialized items, but it appears that you will have a special meeting scheduled on July 8th, and then you'll have an executive session Thursday before your meeting.
Excellent. So that's it. With that, any questions on the discussion items? We're good?
Sure, we're good.
All right, we are in adjournment. Thank you.